What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Grid Encore, coming to you live today from Studio J. The J is for Jenks. I'm in my work office here. We've got some storms coming through the Boston area, so I trust the campus power grid and Wi-Fi a little bit better than my apartments here. So welcome to Studio J. Hopefully you'll see something a little bit more entertaining tonight than that NBA All-Star game. If you were watching that, I feel sorry for you. I also feel a little bit sorry for you if you were watching the finish for Daytona 500. We'll get into that in just a moment. I think Brandon Crossman has some different thoughts on the end of the race. He seemed a little bit more upbeat than me as we were talking backstage. Brandon, how's it going tonight?
It's going all right, Ben. It's another Motor Monday, but there's nothing in the cup because I've got more important things to do than be sipping on some iced coffee tonight. We've got a lot to talk about, and including the 67th running of what once was the Great American Race and still is the Great American Race. It's just taken on some different forms, for better or for worse. Will we return to former forms? We'll just have to see.
There is Baja Blast in here, so you've
yikes! It's going to be a long one, folks. I know that.
We'll see. I know I tweeted about 15 minutes before we came on the air. Yeah, I don't know what version of me you're going to see tonight, but I've had some time to reflect on this weekend. I was not in a great mood last night. I certainly wasn't in a great mood Thursday night. I know my editor-in-chief over at LastCard.info, Brock Beard, was not either, and you can go watch his stream if you want his thoughts on the dual race and the finish there and what led to here's that phrase again, consistent inconsistencies throughout the weekend in terms of how the races were ruled. But again, I mean, I don't think there would be a need for that if we didn't have this culture issue where we are just simply unable to finish super speedway races under green. We're going to get into all the races we usually cover, the series we usually cover rather, on this Encore show. We had an ARCA race, trucks, Xfinity, and of course the Daytona 500. And since I am no longer on the wrap-up shows as regularly, you may see me stop by from time to time throughout the year still, but we tried to ease my workload a little bit here, focus on the Encore show. Brandon, I know you're normally never on the weekend shows with your schedule, so I think
this is my place.
Yeah, exactly. And what I forgot to mention in outlining our plans for the show on last week's episode was I do want to continue to do these open segments and give you a chance as well to chime in on the Cup Series schedule and discourse as well, especially on the weekend of the Daytona 500. So we'll get into that here in just a few seconds. But first, as always, I want to give a shout out to our Patreon supporters, Colin, Deshelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew. Thank you so much for your support, as well as those who have contributed to us through YouTube Super Chat and Buy Me a Coffee. I want to give a special shout out to Lori, who I believe either yesterday or this afternoon on the wrap-up show became a YouTube member. So if you like what you see tonight, you want to join these fine folks in contributing to helping us continue to build this motorsport media outlet, you can join us through Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, or YouTube Super Chat, or Super Thanks if you're watching after the show.
Thank you, Lori, so much for joining us. We really appreciate that.
Yes. And, well, here we go. This is a nice segue, I guess. Kobe Lambeth, the Stephen A. Smith version. We'll see. I don't know how animated I'm going to get here, but let's start things off on a more positive note. I'll give you the floor here, Brandon. Obviously we had a back-to-back winner, William Byron, first back-to-back since Denny Hamlin, 2019-2020, and I believe the fifth ever after Sterling Marlin, Kelly Yarborough, and Richard Petty as well. But again, I know I was just telling you right before we came on the air, this is, I think, the 8th consecutive year where we did not finish in regulation without a crash fest in the closing laps. 2017, when Kurt Busch won and it became a fuel mileage race a little bit, was, I think, the last time we got a truly clean finish to this race. We also had consistent inconsistencies, like I said, throughout the weekend. I know people were very upset with Eric Jones having his victory taken away in the second dual race. They did let them race to the flag last night, even though it was a much more serious wreck, I think, and much further away from the start-finish line. So there's been some debate there on the ruling on what we're going to do when it comes to them racing back to the line. But Brandon, what are your thoughts on the weekend as a whole, but specifically last night? I know you said that you got to watch the race and you had a very positive, upbeat attitude when you were watching it. And that was kind of me last year. I was just so ready to be done with the NFL. I think I was more excited for NASCAR season than ever before. But why did you feel that way, and what did you think of the race weekend?
I don't know, Ben. I guess it's more of just a testimonial, and you kind of take it or leave it sort of a thing for the week. But Thursday night, course, I had a basketball game because this is what this time of year calls for radio broadcasts. But so I went back and saw the duels more properly later on. And so that's when I saw, I think, duel 1. I basically missed it all live. So, Bubba Wallace winning that first duel race. So I really would like to go back and watch some of that more, not on my phone, but, on an actual television. But second duel, saw basically all of it, and seeing there at the end where Eric Jones, had the caution light come up when he was, he crossed the line first as far as we saw, but they put the button on just about 50 yards short, and so that's what happened there. And so you got that in your mind of that's how they're going to officiate there. Well, that, and then you get to the Daytona 500, and it was really a great race. As I'm trying to gather my thoughts here, it's trying to get the rust off of winter and getting into these shows again. But really had a fun time watching the event because, first of all, the rain came just like it did 5 years ago when the president of the United States shows up. Don't know why that happened again, but it did. And fortunately, not as long as it did 5 years ago. We didn't have to go into Monday. We got the entire Daytona 500 in on Sunday in a reasonable time, and it got to be in prime time. Was able to go to church and pause it, and so when I came back, I was able to watch it with my wife, and she was really invested into it this year. I maybe it's because we had the ability to skip the commercials, but also Fox did a great job at having a limited amount of commercials by minutes I saw compared to some previous years. So good on NASCAR on Fox for reducing that time listening to the fans and having more side-by-side action when they have to go to break and pay the bills. But I mean, overall, just the excitement really been just for the season to start again. I probably have caught the bug that you had last year of boy, that was just such a rough Super Bowl. I want to see NASCAR again. But, I was pretty indifferent with the Super Bowl this year. I'm glad the Chiefs lost, but that's about it. Not really. I'm not yay or nay that Philadelphia got a ring. But watching the Daytona 500 this year, I don't know. I was upset about Eric Jones not getting that, and I think they shouldn't have thrown the caution. But I've heard so many different voices talk about it throughout today and last night that that's kind of why I stopped remembering how to put sentences together because I'm trying to gather it all and it didn't really all come out. But the bottom line is I was upset with how the second duel went. And I thought that was just that should never happen again. The way that was done. And I don't buy the argument that all the drivers in the back of the field are going to be, going fast towards the line and that's risking more danger. And I think NASCAR officials understood that. They're human too. They saw that night. They saw the reaction on social media and everywhere and went, wow, we don't want to do that. And so you get to Sunday, and I think we got what we asked for. You don't want the Daytona 500 to end under yellow. You don't want us to freeze the field on the backstretch. Okay, we won't do that. We're going to let them race to the line. And so they did. And I hear that, they're danged if they do it. They're danged if they don't. And I guarantee you, Ben, if they had put the yellow out on the backstretch last night, we would be sitting here talking about it today, being angry about that. That's the way I'm seeing it right now. I'm taking a positive outlook at it and I know we have no background information to think that this is going to be a good precedent setting going forward because we know the consistently inconsistency. But I'm also hearing today that these different yellows, they all look different, and so I'm sure you've heard that already today. It's impossible to keep it consistent when every scenario is completely different. And so I've been hearing that, and I think it's wise to take all of these into consideration before I just get mad and just write off the year. I'm not ready to do that. The super speedway racing needs help. It does. I get that, but I'm just appreciating it for what it is at the present moment this year. So glad that Ryan Preece is okay. I heard every word he said there, adrenaline fueled and all, of thinking about his daughter, and good grief, when are these cars going to stop flying off the ground? But at the same time, this is one of the most dangerous sports in the world. I don't think you're ever going to get these cars to stay planted to the ground. Race car drivers are always going to find a way to up the ante and make a move and lift. But Ryan Preece is alive, and we thank NASCAR for that. Ryan Newman's alive. And Elliott Sadler's alive. All of these phases have come and gone. But these men are still walking today because that fight to make it safer never stops working there in North Carolina. So thankful for that. Overall, just on a personal note, it was really cool to enjoy that race with my wife, and she was into it like fully. And at the end, at that time, I was not happy about the finish. I was already like, oh, come on, that's crap. Why are we doing that? And like, I wasn't even processing that William Byron was a 2-time Daytona 500 champion. I was just still thinking about what just happened. And also Riley Herbst not, keeping that car under control. That I was still getting over that. Like that was the best thing that could have happened, because that would have ended it in turn 1, and we would have had Kyle Busch's fiasco. I was already upset that it was going to overtime. I was going into the weekend thinking, I just want 500 miles. Can we at least get 500 miles? Can we just do that? Of course we can't. But that's what this beast is today. And also Joey Logano, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. are my other beefs. These guys are just, they're chrome horns. They can't get it together that you can't do this. But you can't tell a race car driver not to be aggressive, I guess. But yes, I've heard all of Denny Hamlin's opening monologue, and I agree with that too. So I'm kind of all over the place, but I enjoyed the weekend is what I'm trying to say. I know I'm taking up more time than I probably ever have before.
No, you're good. I mean, there's a lot of layers to this, and I think that, I'm as soon as we log off, I haven't gotten a chance to listen to Action's Detrimental yet. I know that it just dropped right before we went on the air. They were teasing it, saying it's a good one, but yeah, I mean, I wish we could have a 20 to 25 lap green flag run that goes caution free to a checkered flag of a Daytona 500. I don't know if we're ever going to get that again. And I guess that's what frustrates me. And I was just talking to our former colleague, Alex Anderson, about this afternoon as well. Kyle Larson, I think, said something very interesting in the pre-race show. And in asking him, he came close to winning this race in 2017. He's still got many more years ahead of him where he's going to be able to try to win this race. But was, just being asked, if you don't win this race, do you think it defines you in any sort of way? Is it a stain on your legacy? And he said, well, look at Tony Stewart. Tony Stewart never won the Daytona 500. Do people look at that as a massive stain on his career and think, oh, well, he's a great driver, he's a Hall of Famer, but you've really got to hold the fact that he never won Daytona against him when he was so successful at this track in other races and never won the 500. I don't think people look at Tony Stewart that way. I don't think people look at Mark Martin that way. I don't think people are going to look at Kyle Busch that way, or Brad Keselowski that way, or Martin Truex Jr. that way, champions of the sport. We'll see if Truex does another one-off here or not. But you compare that to the Indy 500, and Joseph Newgarden just went back-to-back. I think there's a lot more hype around Newgarden going back-to-back than what I've seen the last 24 hours with William Byron going back-to-back in this race. Maybe it's the manner in which Byron won each of his, with the controversy when the yellow came out last year and Alex Bowman was about to pass him, and then being in, 7th place on the backstretch when the wreck sorted out. So you compare the prestige of NASCAR's most prestigious race to the Indianapolis 500, which Kyle Larson's going to try to do a double again this year. And I don't know. I don't see how the two can really be compared when this is what the 500 has turned into year after year after year. And as I always say, I agree with you, Brandon. It was a pretty good Daytona 475. I'll give them that. But then we get to the closing stages and we saw it once again.
When does it unfold?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And I think what bothers me, and I've said this on this show before, I think I get a lot of criticism from people for saying that I'm too negative. I complain about everything under the sun. And my response is always, and I tweeted this last night, it's not that I am so negative because I don't love this sport. I'm the way I am. I criticize the things I criticize because I love this sport and because I want to see it continue to flourish and continue to be not just entertaining. I think entertainment's certainly a part of it, but I think our most prestigious race of the year should not come down to this every single year. And when I see people in the replies to Jeff Gluck's poll tweeting, well, if you voted no on this race, I don't know what to tell you. NASCAR is never going to be able to satisfy you. And then I think back to what we saw with Ryan Preece last night and his car being launched into the air and him flipping on the backstretch for the second time in a year and a half at this track. And you hear him as he's walking out of the care center and he says, the only thing I could think about was my daughter. And I'm so thankful I walked away. And one of these days, somebody's not going to walk away. And we're very close to that line. We keep banging on that door. And you turn around and tell me if you didn't like that there's nothing NASCAR can do for you. I have a problem with that. And I think that that's something that has gotten under my skin more and more as we continue to embrace this culture of entertainment above all else and the complete inability to get a green flag finish to this race in regulation without going to overtime, without it turning into this. And that's the biggest frustration for me. Yeah,
I completely hear that. And that I want that too. That's still something I long to happen. But with the 3-wide fuel mileaging and then with pushing and shoving, and you're not going to get that with race car drivers pushing and shoving and trying to make moves where there clearly is no move, or there is a move for a split second, because that's their mode of plan. That's their plan, and you compare it to the Indianapolis 500, that race has some luck involved here and there. But I mean, if you don't have a great car, if you don't have a smart driver, if you don't have a gifted driver, you're not going to be in the top 3. Like you can't just draft your way up. You can't draft your way up to the top 3 with lap 190. You just can't do that at Indy in an Indy car. So I still have like big respect for the Indianapolis 500. Here's the Daytona 500. I wish it shouldn't be that way. And I wish diehard NASCAR fans knew about what the Indianapolis 500 takes, and if they could remember back to a time when in NASCAR they were very much closer to each other, if not on level playing field, in their respective disciplines. I mean, Joseph Newgarden, a guest of Team Penske, and he drives for him, but a guest there with Joey Logano because it was the delivery there modeled after Joseph Newgarden's 2 Indianapolis 500 wins. He had a fun time. His reaction was, I wish we could have NASCAR super speedway racing like it was in the 90s. That was seemed like that was his last takeaway. So, he sees what's up. I mean, I'm not ignorant. I see what's up. I know it's different than the way it used to be. And someone is going to end up getting killed if it keeps going like this. I mean, you can't with luck, it takes luck to win. You're also Ryan Preece is also, under the sovereign hand of God that he doesn't die. I mean, he's right. If you keep knocking on that door, if you just don't change anything, and you let him go at it with the 25 laps to go every year, one year you're not going to be so fortunate, and that's just not fair. It's not fair.
Yeah.
It's not fair for the sport.
Yeah, Joe's in our chat here. Good to see you, Joe. The race was a spectacle with 3 wide, big crashes, but do we want that to be the legacy of the Daytona 500? And the answer for me is no. I want to see close side-by-side racing, sure. But and again, I think you see it across the board. It's going to be 24 years tomorrow since we lost Dale Earnhardt. You have drivers in the Cup Series now who literally were not alive. They don't know a world different. They don't know a world where we've lost a driver in NASCAR's top 3 divisions, which is great, of course. We always want to be moving forward with safety, but I think an unintended side effect of that perhaps is that because the cars are so safe, because Ryan Newman, I guess, is probably the exception, or Kyle Busch in that Xfinity race all those years ago, there are still exceptions, but 99% of the time, Austin Dillon goes into the catch fence, the entire engine's ripped out of the thing, and he walks out. Like, the cars are so safe that I think the drivers feel more comfortable taking those risks and making ill-advised moves, and then they don't have to deal with the consequences of it the same way the drivers of a previous generation used to, and maybe that's what's led to the culture that we see now.
Back then, from a safety standpoint, you couldn't afford to make moves like that. That wasn't a strategic move. That was a death wish on somebody.
Yeah, and if you want to go way back in the day, if you wrecked your race car, you'd have to go to the garage, help work on it yourself, and get it ready to go back out again, or work on your back, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah,
like nowadays you have so many Fortune 500 sponsors and everything to pay for your crash damage. Young drivers don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I'm completely there with Denny Hamlin as far as the accountability is gone, and that's something that we need back. How do you get that? I don't know. But yeah, you're exactly right. That it appears that there's no responsibility, there's no accountability for things like that, and it's the same at the short track level. I'm not the short track level of racing. I just mean when we go to short tracks here in the Cup Series and in the top national series, that's just short track racing is pushing people, dumping people out of the way. Like, I don't want to see Austin Dillon at Richmond again.
Yeah. Well, and again, that was,
it didn't get counted. Yeah, that was taken care of, but still.
Though he is going to be in the All-Star race this year, I believe. I think they confirmed that this past week or so, right? So
cool. At a short track.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, like, where is the line? I mean, you can say that was really close to crossing the line. I don't know. I tweeted this 2 years ago when Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won, and it garnered some attention on Twitter. Some people, reacted to it, and I didn't mean it. I kind of regret saying. I mean, I don't regret putting it out there, but I regret the lack of context and how some people took it. But I said Mark Martin never won it, but Derek Cope has. Tony Stewart never won it, but Michael Waltrip has. Martin Truex Jr. has never won it, but Trevor Bayne has. Brad Keselowski's never won it, but Michael McDowell has. Kyle Busch has never won it, but Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has. If you tried to reword that tweet to fit the Indianapolis 500, could you do it? You could say, well, Michael Andretti never won it.
I'd have to look at my mug back there that's got all the winners from 1911 to 2018.
I mean, it would, maybe you could, but it would be a lot harder. And again, I meant no disrespect to any of the 10 drivers I just listed out for not winning the race or for winning the race and it being the highlight of their career, because the rest of their career they didn't have as much success. It takes skill to win this race. I'm not saying that it takes no skill at all, but what I'm saying is when you compare it to other prestigious motorsports events worldwide, you can't deny that it's now more than ever. You see how these races are playing out. There is more fortune, there is more luck, there is more good things going your way that aren't within your control in this crown jewel race than there is in any other crown jewel race that I can think of worldwide. And I think it's just been amplified by the current culture that we have, where you saw the tweet from NASCAR Insights. And again, you want to make an Indy 500 comparison. They said 41 of the 45 cars entered in this year's Daytona 500 were involved in an accident throughout Speed Week. Can you imagine if you saw a statistic that said 31 out of 35 entries, excuse me, 31 out of 35 entries were involved in some sort of incident during the month of May? I mean, it
doesn't happen, no.
It's a mind-boggling ratio. And I look at numbers like that and I say, I mean, you think about repair bills for the teams and everything, like something's got to give at some point. We can't keep doing this.
I mean, there maybe rear of the field if you do an aggressive block, but like what counts as an aggressive, that opens up the can of worms. Like what counts
and I don't want to go into more judgment calls or anything because we have enough of those, obviously.
You need drivers to police themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I hate to say it, but I think that's really, or you
gotta have some respect.
Or I mean, that Mark Martin clip from I think 2005 Paul Talladega resurfaced last night. Like, take the restrictor plates off and let them rip and make force handling to. I mean, you could do that, but I mean, again, you want to talk about safety going 230. I don't know. That's. I saw an interesting tweet today as well. And forgive me, I forget who said it, but maybe what we have at Atlanta right now is what we should see at Daytona and Talladega. We turned Atlanta into this mini super speedway, but it's been a few years. The asphalt's aged a little bit, so now we're seeing, the pack can split up and handling becomes much more of an issue. It's still a drafting track, but I think you're much less likely. Again, I know Corey LaJoie's been very good at Atlanta since they reconfigured it, but I think you're much less likely to see a surprise winner at Atlanta still, even with the reconfiguration, than you are at Daytona or Talladega.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what we should aim for at those two tracks.
Yeah, I think Atlanta, now that it's got a little character in it again, is a better representation of what the Daytona 500 used to be than Daytona itself with this Gen 7 car.
Yeah, and I mean, again, it comes to and so because of all that, we get all of these races. The end of the second duel, the end of a Truck Series race, and that left a sour taste in my mouth of what happened with Parker Kligerman, and we'll get into that later on in the show as well.
Tuesday.
The entire ARCA race, and Denny Hamlin said this as well. Maybe it's not such a good thing that the race was on Big Fox because you got casual viewers tuning in, and what are they going to see if they're seeing ARCA for the first time? At least that one did end under green, but then we saw a wreck at the end after the checkered flag. The end of the Xfinity race, they took the white. I mean, what do you think Parker was thinking about that from the booth? Took flashback to the Roval last year. And then Sunday night with the 500. And I look at that and I say, was there a good, satisfying ending to any of those races? And because it's so predictable now that it's going to end with a wreck on the last lap, almost every time we're going to have some sort of controversy. Do you or don't you? Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Turn that caution light on and freeze the field or let them race back. And again, I get what, I know you clipped that part of the morning drive, Brandon, and sent that to me. I get what Pete Pistone was saying about every wreck not being the same, every caution not being the same. Of course, if there's like a fireball like there was at Daytona in 2021, like of course you freeze the field immediately. But what we saw at the end of Duel 2, I mean, just let him race back. I think if
NASCAR could do it again, they wouldn't hit the button for the second dual race. Absolutely.
And I think you saw,
and then you saw the overcorrection at the 500.
Yeah,
that's them erring on the side of we don't want to do that again, and then it turned out a little too much.
Yeah, and again, I agree with Matt Tift. I think they got the call right last night. But if you're going to do it for what we had last night, what in the world are you doing on Thursday night? So, I think they made a statement last night. That needs to be the precedent going forward here.
And I really have optimism right now, February 17th, that will be the precedent going forward. And whenever you have an overtime at Atlanta, which you will, I think, let's hope that they hold to their word, and then Talladega in the spring.
Yeah. Well, and then this, and I got a reply to my Twitter thread last night saying this as well. Like I feel like we saw a couple of phantom debris cautions again this weekend. I thought those had gone away with the advent of stage racing.
I noticed one, Joe. Yeah, and I think that was just a. Well, yeah. What bugs me the most is that we don't get to see where it is, and maybe they can't find it. Fine, but I just want to know what it was. When when they do find it, Fox will zoom in on it with all the lenses they have.
But if NASCAR can find it, why can't Fox? That's what I want to know. NASCAR's got cameras or people stationed all around, and Fox has cameras all around. Like, if there's actually debris, then great. Put the caution out, of course, if it's a safety issue. But there's no, the network has to be able to show it. And if they can't, I don't think it warrants a caution. Either that or the network's not doing their job.
I told my wife I don't buy that. I told her about the history of phantom cautions and things like that. And also her opinion, I remember about Byron on the backstretch was she was agreeing with Daniel Trotta. What Daniel ended up saying today was, well, he was in the lead, whether they put the yellow back there or he's at the start finish line. That doesn't decide the ending of the race either way.
I mean, again, it was not going to be. I think you knew coming out before Byron was going to win the race.
Reddick's not catching him.
Yeah, and so again, when there's a wreck much further back with many more cars, with the winner basically already predetermined, unless he blows up coming out of turn 4, cuts the tire coming out of turn 4, whatever, you're 99.9% sure Byron's going to win the race. Then they let them race back to the line. But on Thursday night, when it's a photo finish, literally feet away, when the winner changes hands,
and they know, and I'm erring in the side of optimism that NASCAR understands that.
I hope so too.
Yeah, and
I hope,
you
and
saw the
I
difference
get
between
it.
Sunday and Thursday.
I get it. You can't go back and change the past, but
no, you can't.
I mean, it's just, again, I think, like I said, I think Matt Swift, hit the nail on the head, or Matt Tifft rather, hit the nail on the head. On Twitter, that's why Matt Tifft on Twitter. There we go. That's why. Yeah. Sorry, stumbling over my words here a little bit. It's been a long weekend, but I think that's totally it.
I heard some of the replay of Brock's live stream from last night, and I liked he talked about these are race cars. They're meant to go fast. They'll get out of the way. Like, if you're worried about getting your emergency, your emergency personnel out there, and and I don't like dangling the you don't care about safety stuff to the fans if they don't agree with flag calls and stuff like that. Like, you're either for safety or you're not. The ultimatum, I think
there's a lot more nuance.
It's a lot more to it.
Conversation than just you're either for it or against it. So, but again, that's why I think it's important to have the conversation. And when I see people again replying to Gluck's tweets saying, if you voted no, you're a lost cause, or if you voted yes, you're a lost cause. It works both ways. Like I said, Brad, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I really am.
I did.
I think that was me last year. I'm just, again, fans are in different mindsets at different points in their lives. You're never going to see 100% on the Gluck poll one way or the other. Even there was even 10% that enjoyed the All-Star race in Texas in 2022. And again, I'd love to have a conversation with them, but I'm not going to shout them down and say, like, how you must just be trolling or you can't be serious. Like, I trust that they're serious. I trust that there was something that they like. I very strongly disagree with them, but let's have that conversation. Let's figure out, how many layers are there to this onion that we can peel back and realize different things that maybe somebody else saw this in something that I didn't see, or vice versa. And let's talk about it. I don't feel like it's that hard.
Call me drinking the Kool-Aid, but I feel like NASCAR now more than ever is interested in figuring out what these problems are, and are working more than they have in decades trying to make these things better that the fans are talking about.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm hopeful that, again, I don't think it's an overnight fix, but I'll end it the same way I started. I really just, between every race this weekend, there was something about it that left a sour taste in my mouth. And I hate that it ends that way.
I mean,
but the biggest thing for me is that I just wish we could get a long green flag run to end one of these races again. We have not had that in a very long time. And I don't see us having that for a very long time, given the nature of super speedway racing nowadays.
Yeah, I don't see it either. But
very frustrating.
Yeah, but I settled, I guess, for joy's sake. I settled with, well, at least it didn't end with the field frozen and we didn't go back to a scoring loop.
Yes. Yeah.
I settled like, hey, there's an improvement.
I'll take it. Yeah. And I'm going to cheat this week. A little bit of a preview. I have multiple one shining moments from this weekend. There are
Is that
plenty
cheating?
Of
I've done that like all last year.
Well,
no one told me it was cheating.
Yeah. I'm just saying there are positives to come out of this weekend for sure. All up and down the garage. I mean, I love that Dale Jr. was so fired up, with how well Justin Allgaier ran, and who knows where that's going to lead to the future of their Cup Series effort. I think there are some great underdog runs, in the lower series as well. Jimmy Johnson, so great to see him back up at the top of the NASCAR leaderboard.
On the podium. Give him a medal.
Give him his flowers. I know he said he hoped Shaq was watching. I think Shaq was a little busy with the All-Star festivities on TNT, but I'm sure he's going to watch the replay there a little bit later. But there are certainly, I don't want to be a complete downer here because there were certainly good things to come out of this weekend. But
there's a lot of exciting things happening too.
Yeah.
I mean, just all the open car stories and just
no doubt,
and just the new things happening. It's really exciting. And I just have that blind optimism that the sport's in a better position than it's been in a really long time. That's all I've got to say on it. I enjoyed the 500. I know there were problems, and but I have confidence that they're going to be addressed slowly but surely.
Well, and again, I think part of it for me is just, there is, I think back, with my childlike wonder to watching the 500 for the first time 18 years ago, and when cars came out and really sparking my fandom and joy for the sport. And, it's still there, but it's not as strong as it used to be. And I think that I go back and watch old races, and the nostalgia factor hits me. I don't know if in 20 years, am I going to go back and watch, the 2023 or 4 or 5 Daytona 500 and view it the same way? I don't know. Maybe I will. We'll see. Yeah. Who knows where we're going to be 20 years down the line. But it's just, it doesn't move in the same way it used to. And I wish we could get back to that.
Well, I expected coming into this year's 500 to feel jaded and tired of it. I don't know what it was. It was just, I was like last 20 laps, last 10 laps, I was like, I wanted to stand up. Like I was ready to see the end of this race. I knew what was coming, but I was ready to see it. I wasn't ready to see the chaos, but I was ready to see how it was going to unfold, who was going to power their way up top.
Yeah. And again, we had the rain come back, and, that was a very frustrating situation. And I also wish that, like, when they say they're going to move it up to 130, I want that to mean we're going to throw the green at 130, not we're going to give the, pre-race ceremonies, get that started at 1:30, and then we're going to have the invocation of a national anthem, and then, oh, by the way, the president's in attendance again, so he's going to take 2 laps around in the beast, and then we're only going to get 8 laps in before. I mean, at least last time the president was at the race, it started raining as they were going to come take the green.
Again,
at least we got a few laps in this time, but it's like, what was the point of moving? And I know you can't control the weather, but you can control start times. So that was, it's just. Again, there are a lot of factors to it, and when it's kind of a perfect storm of things like that, then it leads to that feeling of just, I guess it's apathy. I don't know but I wish I could be a little bit more invested like I used to be. And hopefully, Brandon, your optimism will come to fruition, and we can start turning a corner here over these next few years.
Well, hopefully it's maybe contagious a little bit this year. Let's try to get that moving.
We'll see. I would like that. Day in the life here. One more comment, and then we'll move on to our race recaps. Does NASCAR have data on the G-Force car's experience like Formula One that is used to determine if safety car periods are warranted? I don't know if that's determined or used to determine whether a caution is warranted. I think that's a lot more up to the discretion of whoever's in the tower and race control. I think, when it comes to oval racing, I think almost any spin or incident on track, if it's not the last lap at least, is going to warrant throwing the caution pretty quickly. I know on road courses it's a little bit different. You have local yellows and everything, but I don't know if there's any. I don't think there's any correlation between that and determining when a caution comes out. I know we have. I think we certainly have technology to determine the G-force levels of impacts and incidents, but I don't know if there's any correlation between those two things. So I don't know, Brandon, if you want to follow up on that. Otherwise, we can roll into our race rundowns.
Yeah, we can move on. Good to hear from you, Adam.
Yeah, I think it was Day in the Life, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I saw the A. I'm sorry,
That's
Day in the Life.
I think his name is Jason. He can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I've seen his.
Sorry, Jason. Good to know your name.
One of our regulars, regardless.
Oh yeah.
So good to see you, as always. All right, let's move on now, and we'll start. I guess we could start with trucks since it was the first race on Friday night. But sorry, trying to get the results up, get the comment taken off. There we go. Here are your ARCA race results for the Chili's Ride Vidente 200. Brendan Queen wins the race. William Sawalich finishes second. How about that? After all the chaos and controversy from the ARCA race, we still end up with the 28 and the 18 finishing 1-2. How do you like that?
There's your ARCA.
Yeah.
Man,
as Nick DeGroot said, I think it was the ARCAest ARCA race of all time, and that's still reflected here in the final results. But certainly a feel-good victory for Brendan Butterbean Queen. William Sawalich, good start to his 2025 as well. Helio Castroneves, he had a very chaotic day in the ARCA race, very chaotic speed week all across the board.
Yeah.
Had to take the open exemption provisional to get into the race after crashing in the duel, and then, of course, crashed in the 500 itself, and then crashed after he took the checkered flag with contact with A.J. Moyer. Moyer said post-race that he didn't have radio communication. I don't know how much I buy that necessarily. I think it was certainly an avoidable situation there, but unfortunate for them to tear up a car, but a good result on paper nonetheless for Helio in an otherwise difficult weekend. But, Brandon, I want to ask you this because we went through this last year, of course, with Shane Van Gisbergen needing to do the ARCA race before he made his Xfinity Super Speedway debut. And then that race got delayed due to weather. SVG didn't even qualify on speed for the ARCA race. Race ends up taking place after Xfinity anyway. And Helio said he wished that he would have had the opportunity to have the ARCA race or have more practice before the dual race on Thursday. Of course, the ARCA race used to be the week before the Truck Xfinity and Cup Series race. Schedules moved around in recent years as Speed Weeks has been condensed. But I don't know. To me, it doesn't necessarily make sense if you're going to require them to do this ARCA race and they have to go through dual races before the ARCA race that they're required to do, or weather could postpone it because they're so close together. Should Daytona, should ARCA, should NASCAR consider moving the ARCA race a little bit earlier in the week, maybe before the dual races on Tuesday night or Wednesday night, to make sure that the Helio Castroneves and Shane Van Gisbergens of the world can get that ARCA race in before their main event later in the week?
It's a really great point. I don't have much to argue against it. It would make more of a. Now, I know Advent Health Speed Weeks is including sports cars, NASCAR, and Moto. So that's the reason why it's still able to be called Speed Weeks. I get that. Although NASCAR used to also have multiple weeks to be there, which is the common misconception. But at least that would provide more for NASCAR's portion of the week, spreading it out a little bit more, giving fans more reason to be there throughout the week. I guess the only negative might be that it might lessen the value for that Friday, the Saturday ticket rather. Might lessen the value for the Saturday ticket. You get to be there all day. You get an ARCA race. You get the Xfinity Series race. As someone who, a couple of events at Nashville Super Speedway where we got the ARCA race and the Truck Series race in one ticket. We thought that was bang for our buck, at least in 2008 money. So, that might be the only negative part. But I mean, if the drivers for the drivers, if they have to have ARCA before they try anything higher on the ladder, then certainly that would help scheduling, or help for first time guys like Helio Castroneves. Also, Helio got a lot of junk talk for his weekend, for being so bad, but I mean, listen, he's a four-time Indianapolis 500 champion, and one of the best to ever drive an American open wheel machine. It's a completely different discipline. Should he have started somewhere else before he went to Daytona? Yeah. But I don't think it's for a lack of skill. I just think it's really just the massive difference in type of car. And also he just came in so optimistic too. That's what I hate the most, because but also he was like, even after the dual race and like going into after ARCA and going to the 500, he was still like saying how nervous he was, like, and I wish he could have some more confidence. But what else do you expect? Like, if anyone else got in that position that had never done that before, they would have done a lot worse. I guarantee it.
Yeah, and I know there was it wasn't just Helio. I saw the clip of Justin Marks saying we could have Andretti and Foyt and Castroneves. You could be the third one to win both the Indy 500 and the Daytona 500. So there was a lot of optimism for him this entire weekend, and I think it's unfortunate that some fans kind of gave him the Juan Pablo Montoya treatment. He comes from open wheel racing and doesn't have an American flag next to his name. Who's this guy? Coming in here thinking he's going to have success and ends up not performing well.
And there's some racist undertones under things like that, and I don't like that. I don't stand for that either.
Yeah, so that was unfortunate, but I think I appreciate that he kept a positive, upbeat attitude throughout the weekend despite the hardships. And again, solid finish in the ARCA race despite everything that happened during and after it. So again, I hope he can come back and whether it's Project 91 car again or something else.
I certainly think Project 91 and Justin Marks, I think they owe him a street course or a road course event to come back to, because I think he could show a little more muscle there. Still would be a change though. Big body stock car. It's still a hassle, but I think he would enjoy it on the road course like we've seen some others. Yeah.
So again, a very, very chaotic race. Unfortunately, we couldn't get more green flag racing under our belts here. Very tough weekend for Venturini. We'll take you back to the second page of the results here. Brandon, I know you texted me when Isabella Robusto crashed out. She was looking very strong this weekend. I think one of their cars didn't even qualify for the race because they sold their owner points from last year, and of course qualifying was rained out. So unfortunate for them. I think Jake Finch was my pick to win the race. He was their last bullet that they had there, and he ends up with a top 15 finish still, but certainly not what he wanted. So again, I think that we, drawing it back to what we started the show with, it's possible. I've seen it done. It was done 2 years ago in this race. We got a very good feel-good winner with Greg Van Alsten, a very clean ARCA race. So if the ARCA drivers can do it, obviously they couldn't do it on Saturday, but if they're capable of doing it, there's no reason that we can't get that in the Daytona 500 either. But again, maybe it would help the guys like Helio Castroneves if this race was a little bit earlier in the week so they could get that kind of training session out of the way before their main event. Yeah. So we'll see if they revisit that in the future.
But yeah, I was so optimistic remembering back to how clean of an ARCA race we got, like you said a couple of years ago with Greg Van Alsten in 2023. But then like halfway through it, Matt Weaver put out, I have no idea what the Dente is, but I want to get off. I no longer want to ride the Dente.
Yeah. And again, I think there was a commercial with 8 to go in a caution-filled race. I know my timeline was not very happy. I mean, again, like Brandon, like you said, credit where it's due to Fox. There was much less full screen commercial time under green flag racing for the 500, but for the ARCA race, I don't know if it's because it was on Big Fox or what the deal was there, but very, very unfortunate commercial timing there at the end.
Yeah, indeed.
All right, we move on now to the Truck Series race. I want to say congratulations for now to Corey Heim. We'll see how this appeal process works, but absolute heartbreak for Henderson Motorsports and Parker Kligerman, credited with a 36th place finish after their disqualification. Thought he'd won the race. Everybody leaving the track thought they'd seen him winning the race. Just a very unfortunate situation, and especially unfortunate given what happened to him the last time he thought he won a race at the Roval in the Xfinity Series last year. So Brandon, I mean, like you mentioned, I guess we'll hear tomorrow, or maybe we'll hear Wednesday, or whatever the case may be. But do you think there's a chance? We saw what Parker tweeted. He said, "I'm not going to comment on it other than to say, I think we have a solid case." Do they have a chance of winning this appeal and getting this overturned?
I don't know how successful their chance is, because I don't know what he's so confident about that they're bringing to the appeal. I don't know. That's kind of like that insider stuff that we don't really have information on. So I just know when they came to the sticks, it didn't match up, and so I'm happy that NASCAR takes their post race inspections seriously enough that they're not showing a bias towards who they know obviously would be a favorite winner. Even going through all the pomp and circumstance of planting the flag on the moon and in the ball field and just the raw emotion that Parker Kligerman had. I'm glad that they're still, and they're not just checking it once and going, all right, that's it. Nope, you didn't make it. I'm sure they went through every measure to make sure, is this right? Is this right? No, it still doesn't line up. Is it right? No, it still doesn't line up. Sorry, man. You wanting the best for, it looks bad for NASCAR anytime that your declared winner isn't the winner. So they really want to, for their sake too, they want to make sure that this is right, but that you got to maintain the integrity of the sport in all counts. And I know we're not doing that well in some places, but if we can do them in some places, I'd like it to be in the post-race inspection room and pre-race inspection too. So glad that they had the guts to do something like this. But man, I hope Parker Kligerman gets his appeal tomorrow. I hope whatever case they have to bring before the court, I hope that it works out for him. And they seem really confident enough about it to bring it up on the CW broadcast like multiple times. Something that you would think would be kind of against NASCAR, I guess, to say out in the open, but saying it on the CW broadcast, I found that surprising. But he's a part of that booth. It's a part of his story. And in the pre-race, we'll get to the CW in a moment, but in the pre-race, they had Chance in the back. Parker won. Parker, they were giving Parker a chance, and he couldn't help but grinning. But he, of course, can't acknowledge that at the time.
Yeah, well, I was trying to get this tweet pulled up here, so I'll show you what Parker said on X the morning after. He says, "Biggest win of my life. Thank you for all the wonderful messages. Over 700 texts. I will not be commenting any further until we are able to present what I believe is a very, very valid case. Until then, I'm focused on my job with the CW Sports and NASCAR Xfinity, because the drivers and teams deserve the full focus on the massive stage ahead of them." So I think absolute class from PK there.
Yeah. And he is.
Yeah. And again, we'll see. I remember this conversation. I remember the days of encumbered victories and people saying, if you have an illegal car or truck, you should have the win taken away. And I don't disagree with that, but I think that, we've seen this happen multiple times now where I think Ross Chastain was the first one when he won at Iowa, and the truck was either too low, I believe. It was too low because he joked when he won Gateway the next week that his truck was a low rider. And again, I don't love the fact that Nice Motorsports still has that banner hanging in their shop to this day, because, they got their redemption and they ultimately didn't win the race. But, it does make me wonder. And I tried to go back and find, I remember sometime last year, I was watching the Above the Yellow Line stream the Taylor Kitchen does, and Rob Branding was on the stream, and I messaged him a chat room that Rob was saying something about the importance of leaving the track knowing who the winner was, and bringing up the facts I brought up. If again, we asked for this. If you have an illegal car, an illegal truck, or whatever the case may be, we wanted them to take the win away. And Rob and I went back and forth a little bit, but I came away from that brief exchange, kind of thinking to myself, well, yeah, the fans buy a ticket, they see somebody win the race, and then they are halfway home and they get a text on their phone or an alert that says the guy that you just saw celebrating isn't actually the winner.
Or they outright go to bed and wake up the next day and to the news that what you saw last night was not true.
Yeah. I mean, in 2021, Daytona 500 ended so late that I think I went to bed thinking, well, I hope Michael passes tech. I hope Michael McDowell doesn't have a disqualification coming his way. And of course he didn't. But that was like I think that tweet came out at 3:50 in the morning, East Coast time. So imagine everybody waking up to that if something had gone wrong there. So again, Brandon, I'm not privy to, any insider information in terms of how the inspection process works. I do think it's a little suspect sometimes that the car can pass pre-race tech and then fail post-race for something that's not supposed to be adjustable. So you wonder, maybe is there like crash damage or something? We went through this New Hampshire all those years ago. Clint Boyer won a cup race, and the thickness that his car didn't match the template was so small that Richard Childress was arguing that maybe the tow truck that pushed him back to victory lane because he had run out of gas maybe could have dented the car in by that much. So
yeah, you even had people looking at how Parker's truck was at the start finish, after celebrating, how it was kind of the back end, which is where they were talking about, was kind of dug there into the asphalt there on the apron. At any point there, did it get bent just a millimeter or two? Like what happened?
Yeah. So again, in light of that, I don't know, what could be done here to reform the process, but I don't know, Brett, do you think there's a way NASCAR could revisit how they do this to maybe, instead of this taking 90 minutes after the race, the car stops, at the entrance of pit road and they do some final checks. And if they find something there, in 2 or 3 minutes, maybe, they have the win taken away. Like, I don't know what we could do, but I do think there is something to be said for, finding out about this, after you've already left the track. And
yeah,
we'll see what comes from this appeal process. But do you think there's a better way to do what we're doing now with inspections and disqualifications?
I mean, yeah, I know enough to know that it's messy and it doesn't look good it doesn't look good for the team that got caught. Doesn't look good for the sanctioning body that takes 2 hours to figure out, that, and for all the social media work, as for someone that runs social media accounts, like all that legwork that is put into this person won, video, pictures, clips, all over the landscape. And then you get that taken away. There's all the damage control that has to go in, and that makes people furious. I mean, it just does. You can't stop humans from doing that. So just all the firestorm that comes after saying, actually, that person didn't win, Corey Heim won, is hard to clean up. So I'm optimistic that Parker Kligerman is optimistic about tomorrow. I just really hope that works out for him, because it did work for him. But I don't know enough about the inspection process to know how we could change what they do. I just want them to still be thorough, and as long as they're right, I honestly don't care too much of how long it takes. I'm just glad that they care enough about it that that part is not entertainment too. That is a part of the sport that screams sport to me.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I think I don't have any insider info or anything, but I think if your engine is overpowered, that's one thing. If your spoiler's at an angle to give you a competitive advantage, or if the window's dented in, like we went through that with Kevin Harvick all those years ago in the Cup Series.
If you're lining your innards with rocket fuel,
yeah, there's that as well. If there's a clear competitive advantage that has come from a modification on your vehicle, then absolutely you should have the win taken away. But if it's a matter of ride heights or something that can get bent out of shape during the race, again, I have mixed feelings about that. And again, the fact that it takes so long after the race to find that and figure that out, I don't know. I do wonder if there's a better way to go about doing this. So we'll leave it there for now. Of course, if there are any updates, I'm sure Grid Tonight will have them, when it comes to the appeal process. And obviously we'll revisit this next week as well, if anything comes of this appeal. But speaking of Parker Kligerman, let's move over to the Xfinity Series now. Of course, Parker in the booth for CW. We'll get into that in just a moment. But there's been a lot of talk about three-peats recently. You have the Chiefs come up short in the Super Bowl. Mac McClung three-peated in the dunk contest this weekend. Austin Hill had already three-peated in this race. the Xfinity Series season opener at Daytona. He was going for a four-peat. Looked like he was going to have a very good chance of doing that, winning the stages, leading the most laps. But then he had a car problem, had to go into the garage. That was the end of his night. So he doesn't four-peat, but RCR still does because Jesse Love comes out on top and wins this race here. Brandon, what was your reaction to seeing Jesse Love take the checkered flag, and how do you think this sets up his 2025 title challenge here in the Xfinity Series?
It was impressive that Richard Childress could still do it after that. I mean, it's the race where Austin Hill is so successful that they have the naming rights, the United Rentals 300, because they're so confident that he can do it again and again and again, and he probably will when we come back. I mean, he's just that good at it, and things don't change. I'm surprised they had car issues. It wasn't due to a wreck. It was just having car issues. That's shocking to me for Austin Hill, but yeah, Jesse Love has got a good start to his 2025. And I don't remember too much about last year for Jesse, but just some complaints about him not having enough not having enough excitement for winning at the world center of racing, which different individuals react differently to different things. But I mean, good grief, man, you won at Daytona. Smile.
Yeah, well, and he had a shot to win this race last year. I think if I remember right, he led the most laps at both Daytona and Atlanta, which were his first two Xfinity starts, and didn't get the win either time there, but he did win at Talladega later in the year, and now he has this Daytona win. So, for all the talk about Austin Hill being a great, super speedway racer, I think Jesse Love, even earlier in his career, making a name for himself, as a great super speedway racer as well. RCR has brought a great package to these Xfinity Series drafting tracks. So, again, I think that, Austin Hill will obviously get another shot very soon here, at another track that has this style of racing. But, for Jesse Love, I think this could be the start of something great for him. I think he had a very strong start to his rookie year, and then kind of dipped in the middle of last season, but then rebounded, to have some strong runs towards the end there. So, I mean, again, we'll see what happens with RCR. I know it's a contract year for Kyle Busch. I don't think Austin Dillon's leaving that 3-car anytime soon, but we'll see what happens with Kyle. Maybe there's going to be a seat opening up in the Cup Series, and we'll see. I would think Austin Hill and Jesse Love might be the top two candidates for that ride. It will be interesting to see how their seasons go in light of that potentially in 2025 here. All right.
Also, want to touch really quickly.
Sure, go ahead.
Sheldon Creed, 3rd place.
At least it wasn't second. At least we don't extend that record here. But yeah, new team.
Yeah. It goes to his teammate Sam Mayer. Yeah.
Yeah.
With Haas Factory. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, again, you would think, if you keep knocking on this door, eventually the seas are going to part for you to get a couple more spots, and you can park in victory lane. But until that happens,
I can see the pain through those glasses. They've been places.
Yeah.
And they've been in that winning car too.
Yep. And he knows what it's like to win. He's an ARCA champion. He's a truck champion. Won plenty of races in those series, but still looking for that breakthrough in Xfinity. So we'll see if he can get that with Haas throughout this year. All right. Well, Brandon, again, you kind of hinted at it, but we saw a sneak preview of this last year. The last, I think, 8 Xfinity races, the playoffs essentially, and cutoff race to get into the playoffs were on the CW. Of course, that was mostly an NBC production still. But now we're fully into the CW era for the Xfinity Series. What are your thoughts on the broadcast, the booth with Adam Alexander, Jamie Mack, and PK there? Do you think there's anything they could do a little bit better? Would you give them a little bit of grace since this was their first attempt at it? What did you think of the broadcast?
I give them grace because it's their first broadcast as a true independently CW production. But and I know there's I think there's some NASCAR production women and men that are a part of that team too. But yeah, last year that I don't count that as CW, as you said. It was IMS Productions basically running that, and NBC and people like that. And so you might as well just had NBC and slap CW on it like you did for USA. But this was legitimately CW doing the NASCAR Xfinity Series, at least how it's going to be for 2025. We'll figure that out, TBD. But man, what a breath of fresh air, in my opinion. What a great bottom section of the screen, because everyone has a widescreen device now. We're not in 2008, and we don't have to worry about people that have this, little chunk, not where they can't see it. So seeing all, I think you said all 25 of the front, constantly there. Man, I had some of Speed Channel vibes when as soon as we got into the place. They've got their entire little fan zone, and of course it's activation because you're the new network on the block. And so whether that stays permanent remains to be seen. But I like it. I mean, especially for Daytona anyway. But having fans behind you in the pre-race show that are there to be like College Game Day, imagine that. The next thing you need to do is you got to get Kenny Wallace and John Roberts involved. I know Roberts is involved with the Sirius XM things, but he's been helping Kenny Wallace do his trackside live things, which they put on I think like YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and things like that. That's been doing really well, especially at places like Bristol. But there's got to be either TNT Sports or Prime. Please pick up Kenny Wallace. He probably doesn't want to do it anyway. But anyway, back to CW. This was such a breath of fresh air. And I know we're short on time. Main point is finally a new person in the pond that is doing things differently, making it look more update, making it look more current, in a current way, not being cheesy. They're there for the race. They're not there to look at fans with their hands in the air, sometimes, but the broadcast wasn't distracted, in my opinion. It was focused on the race, and that we finally have competition in the TV networks, which when you just had Fox and NBC, I think we're going to see some surprising things this year, Ben, because we've just had Fox and NBC. There's no need to improve. There's no need to check if we're doing things if we could do things better. Who cares? We're locked in this baby for years. We don't have to worry about people doing better than us. But now, CW only covers Xfinity. So, if you don't, maybe not much competition, but I think it's more of that other entity exists. And so it's going to be more obvious if FS1 or Fox or if NBC or USA does things that are a little lackluster. It's going to be much more obvious to even the casual fan that, hey, why are they doing it that way? Like when CW does it this way, or, TNT Sports coming in, Prime coming in, when they do things, I'm excited to see what they do, because, especially when they take the baton for the Cup Series, and whenever we're in a section of the year where it's TNT Sports and the CW, or Prime, the CW, of course, FS1 is going to be there for trucks all year, but that'll be a great time. That'll be actually a great time for, if people are watching all three, it's going to be very obvious that like one of these is not like the other two. And I really hope Prime and TNT Amazon are coming in with their A game, going to bring new ideas to the table. And for the love of all that's good, have your driver profiles not cartoon. I know that's how Fox does it. I get it. That's going to change eventually, but having your driver profiles and their car next to them in your starting grid. What a concept. It should have never went away, because that is one of the best things you can do for a casual fan, because especially in this climate with sponsorships changing from race to race, you have to have that driver name to car recognition. And they don't just do it in the starting grid. No. They do it in the middle of the race too. And I think they even saw them do it at the end. Like, wow. It's just a breath of fresh air. There's new minds thinking about these things, putting out a different looking product with the same thing. They care about it. They clearly care about it. And it also gives the Xfinity Series like new life. Like I think they're more than the other networks ever could. Like, we're going to be exploring, we get to have the spotlight just on these Xfinity Series drivers. They get to cover it all year long. There's a lot more to say, and we will say it. I'm just really excited about it.
Yeah, I have to say, the vertical ticker on the left side, or leaderboard on the left side, to show 20 drivers at a time, that really grew on me. And I think that made sense when we transitioned over to widescreen. But how the CW is doing it, the bottom ticker, I guess that's a kind of a throwback to TNT, ironically enough, with the wide open coverage back in the day. But it's growing on me a little bit, I have to say. So we'll see if I still feel that way as we get later into the season here. But I think, again, a very solid start for CW. And I think, like you said, Brandon, they're only going to get better. This was their first real attempt this season. And I think by the time we get into the summer months, you'll see an even better product from them.
Also, fan information, the CW app, you need to download it. And no, you can't watch the races on it. Yes, you can watch practice and qualifying on it. And what a concept, Ben. You can get on this app. You don't have to sign in at all. You don't need anything.
Yeah.
You can get on there and watch qualifying and practice absolutely free. And when you get into the race, put it on your TV, on your phone or laptop, get on the CW website or the CW app, and you can watch the selection of driver cameras, in-car cams, for free. What a concept.
Yeah. Really,
I mean, we took it off the NASCAR app for the Cup Series and put it on Max, which is okay. It's getting it to a different audience. I'm glad for that. I know they've got to change things around, but man, I'm really glad that the CW is having such open access for fans.
Yeah, that's just it. Fan activation. That's a massive, massive win for NASCAR fans. And to technically be, I mean, the CW is a pretty distant fifth, I think, behind the Big Four, but to technically be on network television for every race, we have 9 Cup Series races on Big Fox or Big NBC this year. So for the Xfinity Series to have the full schedule of the CW, I think is going to be a massive win for that series.
Yeah, and just growth too, being on a major network like that.
Yeah. All right. I want to circle back to a couple of questions from Day in the Life here, and then we'll wrap the show up. Will more ARCA races be on Fox? Not to my knowledge, but the Fox Family Network still has the full schedule, I believe. So you'll see those on FS1 or FS2.
Talladega, if I had to guess, if they were to add another,
that would maybe be the only one I could. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then was it windy during the truck race? Lots of trucks spun out of turn 4. I believe so. I think that was causing. There was some talk that might cause some problems at the start of the 500 because of the weather coming in. But I think that was certainly impacting a few of the truck drivers during that race as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of a truck race, we'll see if it comes up in our one shining moments here. But Brandon, what stood out to you from the entire weekend? I know you came away with just a slightly more positive attitude than I did, I think. But what was the biggest thing that stood out to you?
Well, I don't want to take any of yours here, so I'll just take one, and the ear to ear smile for Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his little gator Justin Allgaier finishing top 10, and Junior Motorsports' first ever Cup start. That has to take the cake for me, because the change of direction for Dale Jr. and Kelly Earnhardt Miller from going into this weekend and hearing the press saying, like, is this the start of Junior Motorsports? Are you guys going to do more after this? And they're like, look, we don't know if we're ever going to do this again. That's why Dale Jr. was there at inspection at like 6 a.m. and he wanted to know everything about it, see everything about it, and that facility has given all the emotions to that family. We'll never be able to comprehend that, how many, all the highs, all the lows. And to see them survive the luck, chaos that we've been talking about for an hour about Daytona, and have a chunk of his left front taken out and still finish in the top 10 in their debut, with also the deal with Chris Stapleton and Traveler Whiskey on the car, and Chris Stapleton being there the whole time. He's all in. That's just a really feel good story, and that took the. Yeah, I know it's easy to talk about Dale being the best story, but I mean it from someone who's not like a big Dale Jr. fan. Like I know you see that car there, but ignore that. I wasn't like a huge Dale Jr. fan growing up. I mean, that was part of my family, but I wasn't really a part of that too much. But like this was one of the best stories of the weekend. It's hard to beat.
Yeah, I think you said that's Chase Elliott's Daytona.
It is, but it's a junior motorsports car. So yeah,
junior motorsports car, but yeah.
Yeah.
Not junior specifically. Butterbean wins stood out. That's what A Day in My Life says. And
it did.
Of course, that was good to see in the ARCA series. So like I said, I have several here. Well, several being three. I want to give 3 shout outs here. If there's a silver lining to the unfortunate situation with Parker Kligerman, Frankie Muniz got promoted to the top 10. So Agent Cody Banks finished in the top 10 in a National Touring Series race at Daytona International Speedway. I mean, what a world we live in here. And again, that is still pending what happens tomorrow with the Henderson Motorsports appeal. But I don't know, Brand. I mean, Frankie Muniz keeps his top 10 or Parker Kligerman gets his win reinstated. Which would you prefer there?
I've already told you my answer. I would want Parker Kligerman's win to rightfully stand and for Frankie to go get him at Talladega. But I'm glad Frankie's in a full-time ride. Really excited for that too.
Yeah, I think most fans would agree. It was a very feel-good story for Parker to win, and I think that, of course, if they have a strong enough case, if the appeal goes through, then it would be unfortunate for Frankie. But he finished 11th in his ARCA debut, Daytona, I believe, as well. So it would be history repeating itself in a way. But how about Norm Benning as well? 16th place, and I believe he was his own record that he broke. Oldest driver at 73 years old.
73.
Finished on the lead lap in a national touring race. So, yeah, and I believe, Brock Beer can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's, speaking of Henderson Motorsports, I believe that's one of their old trucks that he purchased for the Talladega race last year. He wanted to do a Daytona race in 2024. Of course, that got delayed due to sponsorship issues, but good to see him back out on track, and very solid finish given the resources that team has, and great to see Norm Benning back this weekend. And great to see that picture that Clay Greenfield tweeted this weekend as well. The two of them shaking hands and sharing a laugh. He said, it took us 12 years to put Eldora behind us from 2013, but good to see Clay back at the track as well. And then the last one, and Brandon, I think you mentioned this as well when we were talking about the Cup Series. Credit to Riley Herbst for that unbelievable save through the grass on the final lap, because if he had spun that out, if he had hit the wall, I think we probably would have seen, again, a buzzkill caution to end the 500, and we'd be talking about a different winner probably, given where William Byron was at. But Riley Herbst's save allowed that race to get a green flag finish at the bare minimum, so credit to him. That's a shining moment as well.
I'll take it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you all so much for sticking with us. I know we went a little bit over an hour today, but lots to talk about, lots to recap from Speed Week, as it's called now, at Daytona. So thank you for tuning into the show tonight. And make sure you follow us at Grid Network TV. We're across pretty much all social media platforms these days, X/Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, LinkedIn. But most importantly, subscribe to us right here on YouTube. And if you really liked what you saw tonight, you can take a few minutes after the show to consider joining our Patreon. Join Colin, Shell, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew in investing in Grid Network to help keep us on the air throughout 2025 and beyond. Help us continue to build this motorsports media outlet here. You can also become a YouTube member through our YouTube channel, as well as Lori did this weekend. So thank you again to her and everybody else on this list who's also contributed to what we do here through YouTube Super Chat or Buy Me a Coffee. Any amount helps us continue to grow our motorsports media outlet. Also, just tuning into the streams. Thank you, A Day in My Life, for being here throughout the entire show. We really appreciate it, and appreciate all our viewers here at the Grid Network as well. So thank you all so much. Looking ahead at our upcoming schedule here, Grid Tonight, as I mentioned, we'll be back on Wednesday with Kobe Lambeth, Josh Birch, and Matt White. So make sure you stay tuned to that. And then, of course, we're getting back into a regular swing of things here with Grid Live, pre-race and wrap-up to follow this weekend. And then, of course, we'll see you back here in 7 days for another episode of Encore. Stay tuned for more coverage, as always, from the Grid Network. Brandon, any final thoughts before we sign off from this evening's show?
Yeah, looking forward to get this year started here with Encore. It's been doing this for a long time, and just thankful for another year. And also, the racing world will be putting its attention on the O2 Arena tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern time, F1 75 live, and all of the teams of F1 are coming together and having, I guess, all their previews, livery previews in one day.
You know, Brandon, I think I might have a bit of a clue as to why my mood is a little bit more sour than it normally might be. Of course, the race restarted from the rain delay. AJ Allmendinger, he's had a very strong car here the last couple of years with Colleague Racing, but he lost a motor. He was the first retirement. You can go read the Last Car article. Unfortunate for him, but really unfortunate because after Denny Hamlin crashed out of the 500 a couple years ago, AJ Allmendinger held a Daytona 500 record for most starts in the Great American Race without a DNF. He was 11 for 11 in taking the checkered flag, and through no fault of his own, through losing an engine, not only does that streak end, he finishes in 41st place, and that is the worst finish in a NASCAR Cup Series race since Homestead in 2015, because this is the first time we've had 41 cars in the charter era.
Well,
so that just adds insult to injury right there.
Ben, that's 2 welcome North Carolina engines that went out this weekend.
Yeah, you're right there. Really, really unfortunate. I've been selfishly kind of hoping that maybe he stays in Xfinity, maybe he doesn't do his race anymore so that he can retire with that streak intact. And I was hoping that he would get to the finish line, avoiding the carnage and chaos and in one piece. I didn't even think about the engine letting go. I thought he had a tire rub, but that smoke was actually coming from the exhaust.
We're in Gen 7. We don't have tire rubs.
Yeah. Really, really unfortunate deal for AJ Allmendinger. But he's back full-time in Cup this year. We'll see. I still don't know what colleagues' plan for him is long-term. He's been on the seesaw between Xfinity and Cup the last several years, but we'll see if he can bounce back from this next week at Atlanta. And, of course, if he does, or if whatever happens in NASCAR next weekend, we'll bring it to you right here on the Encore Show. So thank you all so much for watching, as always. For Brandon Crossland, I'm Ben Schneider. We'll see you next time. Have a good one, everybody.